my political leanings are very similar to my my biases in sports coverage. I'm not obligated not to have them. I'm obligated not to lie about them. And the fact of the matter is this, like I grew up on picket lines. My dad ran the firefighters union for the better part of 30 years. I am a tried and true Midwestern Democrat who has, as an adult or young adult through adulthood, made the strive for further racial and societal equality a huge part of the kind of foundation of who I am as a person. And so I would say, compared to, the average American, exceptionally liberal. And the idea that I should have to hide that or be ashamed of that is, I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm just saying, speaking
you
publicly.
Should be ashamed. You should hide how you feel.
The idea that, I just don't buy into it. And I learned a lesson years ago, self-taught really, as far as how I do it in my sports media stuff, because I was listening to someone whose politics I totally agreed with, not disagreed with, agreed with. And I turned on their podcast and they started talking politics, and I got bummed because I was like, damn it, I wanted to hear the sports. And so that was, to me, really telling. I'm like, oh, if I already know this is going to piss off the people who agree with me, and even the people who disagree with, or I'm sorry, I said it wrong. If I already know there's going to piss off people who disagree with me, and even the people who agree with me, some of them will be like, damn it, then save it for when you really, really got something to say or something really meaningful happens. And so that's kind of how I've done it. Like, I feel very passionately about guns. When I feel the need to speak on it, I do. I obviously, your listeners can maybe tell from this, have very strong opinions about Donald Trump. I didn't speak so much about that because it almost felt like, man, that ground is like that. Yeah. So there's other people on watch. Like if I had thought of something to say that I was like, no one has made this point, then I would go out and make it. I'm like, you know what? We're pretty well covered on that front. And so I don't care. And I understand there are some people, the most extreme, who, when they hear my self-admitted politics, are going to be like, fuck that guy. I'll never listen to him again. And my answer to that is, okay, if knowing how I feel about these things you're so brain melted that you can't enjoy what is just objectively brilliant content, such as Mahomes Mountain, then fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I'm not like, fitting in my political takes in that. And so I just I'm not worried about it. I'm just not worried about it.
Well, I think you've got the right mix. Even though I'd say sometimes you've said things that I don't agree with, you're not hammering people over the head with your opinions on politics and culture on your sports show. You've got your compartmentalized space with your podcast where, hey, if you want Nick and you want all of the Nick, then that's the place that you go to for that. And this was almost weirdly a little like the analytics conversation where there's no real formula for what we're talking about. There's no real, you should never talk politics. That's totally wrong. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's also not the case that in certain places you should always be doing that because of the weird issue you've identified, which is even if it's somebody you agree with, you might not be coming to them.
Might
for
just
that.
be bummed out of it. I might be trying to like escape from it, or I might, just not want to. And so it's just. Go ahead.
I call it, no, I'm sorry. I call it the sardine problem, which is that because you saw a lot of this after Trump got elected, a lot of people in sports media were talking about this stuff all the time. And then when people sort of fell off or didn't like it, they said, well, I don't even want those people because they're the other side. And I would think sometimes it might be your own side because there are people who like sardines. Sardines have a lot of umami, but if they go to the vending machine and press E4 for a Reese's peanut butter cup and the sardine flops out, it's not even that they're anti-sardine. It's just
it's not what I came here for. Well, that's a kind of like an old I've heard this lesson from various, media bosses throughout my life, which is like, if you take over the McDonald's and you have the world's greatest pepperoni pizza recipe, like it is objectively the best, and so you get rid of all the burgers and you have the best pepperoni pizza that's ever existed, guess what? People are still going to be pissed because they pulled up there expecting something, and had they wanted the pepperoni pizza, they'd have gone somewhere else. So I do get that. I also think sometimes that can be a bit of a cop-out. Like, I think that, speaking to kind of bring them together, I was at the Chiefs parade and there was a shooting, an active shooting that we had to flee from. If the next day I'm on TV, I'm so afraid that I'm going to alienate my most, adamant 2A members of my audience, then I'm a coward. Like, no, like that was a unique thing that I experienced, and I'm going to talk to you about it.
It would be weird if you were already angry that the Niners were favored in the next Super Bowl on that particular episode. That would have that would have not fit. That would have been strange.
Right. And so, and I don't, I have very, very strong political opinions, and I think I've done a good job in how I present them and when I present them. And I don't love, without, I guess maybe a bit of a cop-out, but I apologize. Without naming names, I don't love when people in the sports media space who I think also have strong political opinions, play the both sides thing. I really don't like it, and I feel like it might be
talked about right now.
I'm not talking about you. Maybe I could be. I don't. It's possible that you do what I'm talking about, and I'm just not as in tune to it. I just think. I think you owe it to the audience to either never, like, truly stay out of it entirely, or own what you believe. And I did a thing a few weeks ago before the election where I said I really, really don't like this idea that we shouldn't, quote, judge people positively or negatively for their politics. I was like, I want to be judged for mine. I was like, I think your politics are a massive amount of what makes up your character and who you are. And I will let, for the audience that opts into the podcast and opts into when I say I'm going to talk politics, like, is really deep into it, I'm going to lay to bear what I feel and what I believe. And I want you to judge me for it, for good or for bad. Like I have, and the example I used is I have some buddies in the poker community who are single issue voters, and that single issue is Bitcoin. And when I tell you it would not matter what a candidate had done. It was purely who do I think is going to be best for my Bitcoin is who I'm voting for. And I said, then I'll say now, judge those guys for it. Doesn't mean like I'd never speak to them again, but I think that is a very selfish way to view the world. Like, oh, okay, if you're looking at this as purely a simple binary question of, for me personally, which person, the only thing that matters is where is going to make my Bitcoin profit go higher, I judge it for it. And it doesn't mean, and I think that's reasonable. So I don't talk about this a ton, but I also don't like folks who I think really feel strongly one way, whether it's conservative or liberal, and try to play patty cake and pretend they don't. Sorry, doorbell just rang. That's my dog. I have the fluffiest, friendliest dog, but he sounds like a ferocious guard dog. And so when the doorbell rings, he runs and goes. I thought a Great
Dane just landed right next to you.
Yeah. It's funny. No, sorry about that.
I do. So I have a difference of opinion on that. I don't think we're going to reconcile that. I actually think people's political beliefs are more incidental to their character, and their quality as a person is, I think, overwhelmingly defined by just how they treat the people around them. But I'm relating to you in the sense of, it's hard to know what the rules are for how somebody operates in this space. And I don't know what counts as a cop-out or not a cop-out. I don't take any formal partisan positions. I think I wrote something about it maybe a year ago about what my general rules are. And I have my own reasons for that. But I disagree with the idea of looking at one's politics as reflective of character. I think character is more, in my estimation, defined by how you treat the people around you. And I tend to think that people,
I think how you treat the people around you is indicative of how polite you are. And I think that politeness is overrated.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about how you treat
values are underrated.
I'm talking about something deeper than politeness, although you should be nice to waiters. I do think that is reflective of poor character if you're not nice to a waiter or waitress. I would say that. But yeah, we all have our own rules. I don't know if my rules are correct for myself, and I could easily see somebody saying, that's a lot of BS that you don't take a position or side with a particular candidate, but I've got my own reasons for doing that. I worry about what happens if I'm formally identified with a team, not just for my ability to try to reach different people from different perspectives, because I think once you become identified with a team formally, it changes things. And a lot of people close themselves off to you who might otherwise be open-minded. They might do that anyway because they just regard you as part of a team because of what you said, but I think it's more so. And then I worry about what happens to myself. If I formally identify with a team or a candidate, that's another thing that I worry about. Then does that put me on tilt where I'm trying to not view things as honestly as I might? And then the other part is, the coward's part is, I don't want to own anything anybody does. I don't want to support a candidate and then they do something and I go, oh God.
Oh, well, I guess I don't know. I mean, I guess I look at things very differently. We can do the other stuff, but I don't feel like I don't feel like, because it was very, like, I don't look at it as I identify as a Democrat or a liberal, and therefore whatever the Democratic Party platform, like, I have to answer for it. What it just means is, like, in our current political system, in most elections, one of two people are going to win. And in general, with some exception, I am going to check more boxes of agreed values with the liberal candidate than the conservative candidate. And like I said, there's something, right. I live in New York City. There's a Democrat mayor. This guy, I voted for his more liberal opposition. However, give me back Give me who was the Republican who ran this town? Bloomberg? Was Bloomberg a Republican at the time?
Bloomberg and then Giuliani before.
No, not Giuliani.
Bloomberg.
No. Don't give me Giuliani. I'll take
Nick
loves
Giuliani.
But,
and so the takeaway, awful announcing. Nick Wright loves Giuliani, especially the work he did in 2020. But
no, his whole career started a race riot with the cops, whole thing back with but no, I get that. I just view it differently. But go ahead.